that destroys comfort right now. At this exact moment, someone weaker than you is winning. Someone less intelligent, less talented, less capable, less prepared. They are taking the position you wanted. They are commanding the respect you deserve. They are moving through spaces you were too afraid to enter. They are speaking with authority you possess but never weaponize. They are being obeyed while you are being ignored. And you want to know why, because they look more certain. That is the only difference. Not skill, not intelligence, not preparation, not talent, not worthiness, certainty. They have mastered the art of appearing absolutely convinced of their right to occupy space, command attention, and expect obedience. And the world, in its primitive pattern recognition machinery, mistakes their performance of certainty for actual competence. Meanwhile, you hesitate. You measure your words 3 times before speaking once. You wait for the perfect moment that never arrives. You rehearse conversations in your head until the opportunity dies. You overthink until your brilliance becomes paralysis. You prepare until preparation becomes procrastination. You wait for permission from a world that only respects those who take without asking. And as you wait, as you calculate, as you doubt, as you measure, someone else with half your ability and double your audacity walks through the door you were standing in front of and claims what could have been yours. This is not a motivational speech. This is not encouragement. This is a declaration of war. War against the version of you that still believes the world rewards the deserving. War against the conditioning that taught you to be humble while others were learning to be dominant. War against the voice in your head that whispers, maybe I am not ready, while watching lesser men sit on thrones. Confidence is not a personality trait. Confidence is not a feeling. Confidence is not something you are born with or without. Confidence is a weapon, a tool of psychological warfare, an instrument of social dominance. And if you do not learn to carry it with precision and deploy it with ruthlessness, someone else will use it against you. They will use their false certainty to take your real value and leverage it for their own rise. Machiavelli understood this in the courts of Renaissance Italy. He watched as the bold ascended even when they lacked substance. He observed as the hesitant descended even when they possessed brilliance. He documented how power flows not to the most qualified but to the most certain. How thrones are occupied not by the wisest but by the boldest. How influence belongs not to those who deserve it but to those who act as if they already possess it. The world does not have time to discover your hidden value. It judges you in the first 3 seconds. Your posture, your eye contact, your vocal tone, your energy, your certainty, and in those 3 seconds, it decides whether you are a ruler or a servant, whether you deserve respect or dismissal, whether you command or you obey. This is the game. This is the reality beneath the polite surface. This is what they never taught you in school or home or church. That competence without confidence is invisible. That brilliance without boldness is wasted. That preparation without projection is worthless. You can be the most skilled person in the room and still be treated like furniture if you do not master the language of certainty. You can have the best answer and still be ignored if you deliver it like a question. You can possess the strongest vision and still be overlooked if you present it like an apology. This video is not here to make you feel better. It is here to reconstruct you, to demolish the conditioned version that was trained to wait, to seek approval, to doubt your right to occupy space, to replace that version with something colder, clearer, more dangerous, more certain. You will learn how to erase hesitation like wiping fog from glass. You will learn to speak like a ruler issuing decrees, not a subject requesting permission. You will learn to move like a man who expects obedience because he has never known anything else. You will learn to weaponize your presence so that rooms shift when you enter them. Watch closely, pay attention, because from this point forward, your weakness will no longer be tolerated. It will be identified, isolated, and executed. What remains will be sharper, harder, colder, more effective. The version of you that hesitates dies today. What rises in its place will be undeniable. 2. Identity breakdown. The servant revealed you were not born weak. You were manufactured into weakness, systematically, deliberately, through years of careful conditioning disguised as education, socialization, and morality. They taught you to obey, to raise your hand before speaking, to wait your turn, to respect authority without question, to follow rules even when rules served no purpose except control, to be nice, polite, agreeable, pleasant, to smooth edges, lower your voice, shrink your presence, minimize your needs. They taught you to seek approval, to look at faces for permission, to measure your worth by external validation, to feel good when praised and devastated when criticized. to shape yourself according to other people's comfort levels, to become malleable, controllable, predictable. They taught you to ask, "Is this okay?" before everything, before speaking your opinion, before taking space, before pursuing what you want, before expressing disagreement, before asserting boundaries, before claiming what belongs to you. And so you became what they designed you to become, not a man, a servant, a well-trained, obedient, predictable servant who flinches at judgment and waits for permission that will never come, because the people who grant permission only grant it to those who don't need it, to those who would take anyway, to those who have already decided. What lives inside you right now, controlling your movements like a puppeteer, is the inner servant. You recognize his voice. He is the one who hesitates before every bold action, who overthinks until opportunity evaporates, who apologizes before speaking, during speaking, and after speaking, who softens every statement with qualifiers and escape routes, who flinches when voices rise, who shrinks when challenged, who retreats when tested. The inner servant is terrified of judgment. He scans every room for signs of disapproval. He reads into every facial expression. He interprets every silence as rejection. He assumes every criticism as truth. He believes every doubt that crosses his mind. He trusts everyone's opinion about him more than he trusts his own assessment. The inner servant is addicted to permission. He cannot move without external validation. He cannot decide without consensus. He cannot act without approval. He asks before taking. He explains before doing. He justifies before existing. He seeks permission to occupy space that is already his. The inner servant believes in fairness. He believes that if he is good enough, kind enough, patient enough, humble enough, the world will eventually recognize his value and reward him accordingly. He believes the game has rules, that the system is just, that merit matters more than presence, that truth eventually wins. He is wrong, catastrophically wrong, and his wrongness has cost you years of your life. Years of opportunities taken by others, years of respect given to lesser men, years of watching from the sidelines while the bold played the game you were too afraid to enter. This version must die, not metaphorically, not gradually, not gently. He must be executed, completely, publicly, in front of your own consciousness, so you can witness his burial and know with absolute certainty that he will never rise again. Because Machiavelli did not whisper, he commanded. He did not wait to be understood. He acted and allowed others to interpret later. He did not ask for power. He seized it because he understood that those who ask for power have already confessed they do not deserve it. Power is not requested. It is demonstrated, projected, taken. Your transformation starts with inversion, with doing the exact opposite of what the inner servant would do. Every impulse that makes you smaller must be reversed. Every instinct that makes you seek approval must be denied. Every habit that makes you wait must be destroyed. Every time you want to shrink, expand, take up more space, stand wider, sit with authority, occupy the territory your body already claims. Stop making yourself smaller to make others comfortable. Your comfort is not your responsibility. Your presence is. Every time you want to explain yourself, pause, hold the silence. Let them sit in the discomfort of not understanding. Let them wonder. Let them ask. But do not volunteer justification for your decisions, your boundaries, your existence. Explanation is the language of the accused. You are not on trial. Every time you want to apologize, stare instead, hold eye contact. Let them feel the weight of your focus. Let them understand that you are not sorry for occupying space, for having standards, for expecting respect. Apology without genuine wrongdoing is submission, and you no longer submit. Dangerous confidence does not come from feeling ready. It comes from doing what the inner servant would never dare. It comes from acting before you feel prepared, from speaking before you feel certain, from deciding before you have complete information, from moving forward despite fear, doubt, and the screaming voice of the servant begging you to wait, to reconsider, to be careful. You walk faster, not rushed, but purposeful, like someone with a destination that matters, like someone whose time has value, like someone who does not wait for others to set the pace. You take up space, physical space, conversational space, emotional space. You stop making yourself convenient. You stop shrinking to fit into containers designed for smaller men. You expand naturally, unapologetically, inevitably. You stop nodding, that constant agreeable bobbing of the head that signals submission, that communicates yes, I am listening to my superior. Your stillness replaces it. Calm observation, assessment without approval. You stop softening your tone, That upward inflection at the end of sentences that turns statements into questions. That gentle, non-threatening please don't (t-b-mad-at-me) voice. You lower your pitch. You slow your tempo. You speak like someone whose words are not suggestions but conclusions. You speak like your words are decisions, not proposals. Not, I think we should maybe consider, but we're doing this. Not, would it be okay if, but, this is what's happening. Not, I'm not sure, but definitive statements delivered with the calm certainty of someone who has already made up his mind. Confidence is not a mindset you adopt. It is an identity you forge, and that identity is forged in defiance. Not defiance against the world. Defiance against the version of you that still wants to serve, that still wants to be liked, that still wants approval, that still wants to be safe. So here is your first rule, the first commandment of the new order. If it makes you small, kill it. A thought that makes you hesitate, kill it. A habit that makes you seek approval, kill it. A person who demands you shrink, kill their access to you. A voice that whispers, who do you think you are? Kill it with action that answers that question undeniably. If it makes you hesitate, confront it. Walk directly toward the fear, the uncomfortable conversation, the bold move, the risk. The inner servant is addicted to permission. He cannot move without external validation. He cannot decide without consensus. He cannot act without approval. He asks before taking. He explains before doing. He justifies before existing. He seeks permission to occupy space that is already his. The inner servant believes in fairness. He believes that if he is good enough, kind enough, patient enough, humble enough, the world will eventually recognize his value and reward him accordingly. He believes the game has rules, that the system is just, that merit matters more than presence, that truth eventually wins. He is wrong, catastrophically wrong, and his wrongness has cost you years of your life. Years of opportunities taken by others, years of respect given to lesser men, years of watching from the sidelines while the bold played the game you were too afraid to enter. This version must die, not metaphorically, not gradually, not gently. He must be executed, completely, publicly, in front of your own consciousness so you can witness his burial and know with absolute certainty that he will never rise again. Because Machiavelli did not whisper, he commanded, he did not wait to be understood. He acted and allowed others to interpret later. He did not ask for power. He seized it because he understood that those who ask for power have already confessed they do not deserve it. Power is not requested. It is demonstrated, projected, taken. Your transformation starts with inversion, with doing the exact opposite of what the inner servant would do. Every impulse that makes you smaller must be reversed. Every instinct that makes you seek approval must be denied. Every habit that makes you wait must be destroyed. Every time you want to shrink, expand, take up more space, stand wider, sit with authority, occupy the territory your body already claims. Stop making yourself smaller to make others comfortable. Your comfort is not your responsibility. Your presence is. Every time you want to explain yourself, pause, hold the silence. Let them sit in the discomfort of not understanding. Let them wonder, let them ask, but do not volunteer justification for your decisions, your boundaries, your existence. Explanation is the language of the accused. You are not on trial. Every time you want to apologize, stare instead. Hold eye contact. Let them feel the weight of your focus. Let them understand that you are not sorry for occupying space, for having standards, for expecting respect. Apology without genuine wrongdoing is submission, and you no longer submit. Dangerous confidence does not come from feeling ready. It comes from doing what the inner servant would never dare. It comes from acting before you feel prepared, from speaking before you feel certain, from deciding before you have complete information, from moving forward despite fear, doubt, and the screaming voice of the servant begging you to wait, to reconsider, to be careful. You walk faster, not rushed, but purposeful, like someone with a destination that matters, like someone whose time has value, like someone who does not wait for others to set the pace. You take up space, physical space, conversational space, emotional space. You stop making yourself convenient. You stop shrinking to fit into containers designed for smaller men. You expand naturally, unapologetically, inevitably. You stop nodding, that constant agreeable bobbing of the head that signals submission, that communicates yes, I am listening to my superior. Your stillness replaces it. Calm observation. Assessment without approval. You stop softening your tone, that upward inflection at the end of sentences that turns statements into questions. That gentle, non-threatening, please don't (t-b-mad-at-me) voice. You lower your pitch. You slow your tempo. You speak like someone whose words are not suggestions but conclusions. You speak like your words are decisions, not proposals. Not "I think we should maybe consider ... double quotes, but we're doing this." Not "would it be okay if ... but this is what's happening." Not "I'm not sure but ... double quotes, but definitive statements delivered with the calm certainty of someone who has already made up his mind. Confidence is not a mindset you adopt. It is an identity you forge. And that identity is forged in defiance. Not defiance against the world. Defiance against the version of you that still wants to serve, that still wants to be liked, that still wants approval, that still wants to be safe. 3. The ruler's arrival presence as silent dominance. Powerful men do not arrive loudly. They do not announce themselves. They do not seek attention. They do not perform dominance like amateur actors on a stage. They arrive with presence. A presence so heavy, so undeniable, so gravitational that the room shifts before they speak a single word. Presence is not voice, it is not volume, it is not aggression, it is silence with weight, stillness with threat, observation with judgment. It is the atmospheric shift that occurs when someone who truly owns himself enters a space filled with people still trying to prove themselves. You do not need to be known. You do not need to be liked. You do not even need to be acknowledged. You just need the atmosphere to shift the moment you enter. That is how a man moves when he owns the room. Not because he has been told he does. Not because he earned a title that grants permission, but because he behaves like he always has. Like ownership is his default state. Like authority is his natural condition. Machiavelli understood this in the royal courts of Florence and Rome. The ones who ruled were not always the kings wearing crowns. Sometimes it was the man in the corner who barely spoke, the advisor who sat in shadow, the strategist who observed while others performed. But when he did speak, when he finally broke his silence, the entire court leaned in. Conversation stopped, attention focused, because everyone understood instinctively that this man's words carried more weight than the king's decree. Why? Because silence is control, and most people do not understand this. They think talking makes them dominant. They think filling space with words establishes presence. They think constant commentary creates influence. It does not. It makes them predictable, readable, controllable. The loud man reveals too much. He shows his insecurities through his need to be heard. He broadcasts his desperation through his constant talking. He gives away his position through his need to explain, justify, convince. The quiet man is the threat because no one knows what he is thinking. No one knows his true position. No one knows when he will move or what he will do when he does. His silence creates mystery, and mystery creates gravity. People are drawn to what they cannot fully understand. They fear what they cannot predict. They respect what they cannot decode. When you walk into a room, you do not look for permission. You do not glance around seeking approval. You do not scan faces to determine if you belong. You observe, you assess. You let the others rush to prove themselves while you calculate. Your posture speaks before your mouth does. Stand like someone who has already claimed a territory, not with puffed chest or theatrical confidence, but rooted, grounded, unmovable. Your body communicates one message: I am exactly where I am supposed to be. This room is not evaluating me. I am evaluating this room. Walk slower than you think you should. Most people rush. They move with the frantic energy of someone who feels they must justify their presence through productivity, through being busy, through visible effort. This is the movement pattern of servants and middle managers. Predators do not sprint unless it is time to strike. Until then, they move with deliberate calm. They conserve energy. They wait. They watch. They study. When you walk slowly, deliberately, with measured steps, people unconsciously register authority. They register someone who is not in a hurry because time bends to his schedule, not the other way around. Most people do not even realize how fast they move, how fast they talk, how often they interrupt, how quickly they fill silence. Because they are trying to impress. Because they are still operating beneath someone else's judgment. Because they still believe they must prove they deserve to be in the room. But when you walk in like you own the room, everything changes. You do not speak to impress. You speak to decide. Every sentence carries finality. Every word sounds like a conclusion, not a proposal. People start to listen differently. They do not challenge you reflexively. They calibrate themselves to you. They adjust their energy to match yours. They become reactive while you remain centered, and when others speak, you wait. You let them go first. You let them reveal their hunger, their insecurity, their weakness, their agenda. Because the one who talks first usually gives away what they fear, what they need, what they want. And once you know that, once you understand their position, you can bend them at will, not through force, but through strategic positioning. You do not chase energy, you create gravity. You become the center that others orbit, not through manipulation, not through tactics, but through the simple act of being completely self-possessed, of being so certain of your own value that you do not need external confirmation. So here is your first rule, the first commandment of the new order. If it makes you small, kill it. A thought that makes you hesitate, kill it. A habit that makes you seek approval, kill it. A person who demands you shrink, kill their access to you. A voice that whispers, "Who do you think you are?" Kill it with action that answers that question undeniably. If it makes you hesitate, confront it. Walk directly toward the fear, the uncomfortable conversation, the bold move, the risk, the moment where you must choose between comfort and power. Choose power, every time, without negotiation. If it makes you weak, deny it. The temptation to explain, the urge to apologize, the desire to be understood, the need to be liked. Deny these impulses, starve them, let them die from lack of feeding. If it tries to make you liked, laugh at it. Because likability is the currency of the powerless, the comfortable, the forgettable. Respect is the currency you accumulate now. Fear is the currency you accumulate now. Not fear born from aggression, but fear born from unpredictability, from strength, from the sense that you are someone who cannot be controlled. The world will tell you to be kind, polite, nice. These are fine qualities for those who have nothing to protect and nothing to build. But here is the Machiavellian truth that they will never teach you in Sunday school or corporate training. Nice men are tools. They are used, discarded, replaced. They are the hammers and nails of other people's construction projects. Powerful men are not nice. They are precise. They are measured. They are controlled. They are calculated. And it starts with one action, slaughtering the voice inside you that still begs to be accepted. You do not need permission. You do not need validation. You do not need anyone's approval to occupy the space you already stand in. You need only one thing, the willingness to become feared, not by others, though that may come, but by your former self, by the version of you who hesitated, who waited, who asked. Let that version look at who you are becoming and feel terror. Let him see that there is no going back, that the door behind you is not just closed but burned, that the bridge to the old identity is not just crossed but demolished. Because once you kill the servant completely, once you eliminate him so thoroughly that he cannot resurrect, the ruler awakens, and when the ruler awakens, everything changes. Because confidence at this level is not about being liked. It is about making others question their own position just by standing near you. It is about creating subtle psychological pressure simply by existing with certainty while they exist with doubt. So you carry yourself like you have already won, not arrogantly, not with ego or performance, but like someone who does not compete because he has already chosen himself. Like someone who understands that the race is not against others but against his own potential, and he is winning that race. If they respect you, good. If they do not, better. Because indifference to approval is the final form of power. It signals that you are not playing for their validation, that their opinion, while noted, does not determine your self-assessment, that you have an internal standard that exists independent of external feedback, and this creates a psychological disturbance in others. Because most people are so dependent on external validation that they cannot conceive of someone who is not. They cannot understand someone who genuinely does not need their approval. And what they cannot understand, they respect. What they cannot manipulate, they fear. If the room was not yours when you entered, by the time you leave, they will remember it as if it always was. Not because you demanded it, not because you announced it, but because you did not have to. Your presence declared it silently. Your certainty established it without words. Your gravity pulled it toward you inevitably. This is the power of presence. Silent, heavy, undeniable. For the weapon of speech, words, are surgical strikes. Words are not just sounds that facilitate communication. They are weapons, instruments of influence, tools of psychological warfare. And most men speak as if they are apologizing for the crime of existing, for taking up auditory space, for having thoughts worth expressing. You can identify them instantly. The rising tone at the end of every sentence, that upward inflection that turns statements into questions, declarations into requests, certainty into doubt. The nervous laughter that punctuates every third sentence, the endless filler, like you know, I think, maybe, possibly, I'm not sure, but ... double quotes. They speak as if they are asking permission to have opinions, as if they must apologize for occupying conversational space. As if their thoughts require external validation before they can be considered legitimate. This is not speech. This is self-sabotage. This is the linguistic pattern of submission. Machiavelli knew the truth. Power is not always in what you say, but in how you say it, in the tone, in the tempo, in the certainty behind the words. And when you speak like you cannot be denied, people do not analyze the logical content of your words. They do not fact-check your statements. They submit to the weight of your certainty. Because here is the game that no one teaches you. People are not logical. They are emotional. They do not follow truth. They follow conviction. They do not respect accuracy. They respect certainty. If you sound sure, they assume you are right. If you hesitate, they assume you are wrong, regardless of the actual merit of your position. If you speak with conviction, they defer. If you speak with doubt, they dismiss. This is not fair. This is not logical, but this is reality. So what does a Machiavellian voice sound like? It is slow.com/final. You speak as if your words are not open for debate, as if each sentence is a decree issued by someone who expects compliance, as if you are not sharing opinions but stating facts that others will eventually recognize as truth. You speak like someone who already expects to be obeyed. It does not matter if you are in a room full of experts, executives, authorities. If you sound like a decision, they will defer. If you sound like a conclusion, they will accept. That is the first rule. Sound like the end, not the beginning. And here is what most will never tell you. You do not need to speak often to be respected. In fact, the more you say, the more chances you give others to decode you, challenge you, dismiss you, or worse, stop fearing you. Speak less, mean more. When you do speak, make every word count. Eliminate filler, eliminate uncertainty, eliminate qualifiers. These are the linguistic habits of the weak. Never say, I'm just saying ... This is an escape hatch. It allows you to retreat if challenged. It signals that you are not fully committed to your own statement. Never say, I could be wrong ... This is preemptive surrender. You are undermining your own position before anyone else has a chance to. Never say, I don't know if this makes sense, but ... this is apologizing for having thoughts. Burn this phrase from your vocabulary. Say what you mean and leave it there. Let others deal with the silence that follows. Because silence after a strong statement is powerful. It dares people to challenge you, and most will not. Why? Because they are afraid of what else you might say. Because your certainty makes them doubt their own position. Because challenging someone who sounds absolutely sure requires more conviction than most people possess. Now understand this critical truth. The tone of your voice is your true message. The words are merely the surface. But your tone, your calm, grounded, deliberate tone, tells people exactly where you stand in the hierarchy. You want to rise, lower your pitch. High-pitched voices signal stress, excitement, lack of control. Low voices signal calm, authority, certainty. Slow your tempo. Rushed speech signals anxiety. Measured speech signals control. Remove the nervous energy. Replace it with gravitational weight. Sound like someone who has nothing to prove and everything under control. Sound like a man who has already made up his mind and expects the world to catch up. This is not arrogance, this is projection of internal certainty. You do not win conversations by being louder. You win them by speaking in a way that makes people feel your words are not suggestions. They are facts, they are conclusions, they are decisions that have already been made and are now being communicated as a courtesy, not as a negotiation. This is how rulers speak. How generals speak, how exiled kings speak before they take their thrones back. And if someone challenges you, never defend, redirect, do not argue, do not explain, do not justify. These are the behaviors of someone whose position is weak. Simply say, I disagree, or better, that's incorrect, and then move on. No elaboration, no justification, just a flat refusal to accept their premise. Because when you refuse to debate, you signal something terrifying to the challenger. That your reality is not up for negotiation, that your position is not dependent on their agreement, that you have made a determination and their input, while noted, is irrelevant to your conclusion. This is how you control a room without ever raising your voice. Without aggression, without dominance displays, simply through the unwavering certainty in your tone, because confidence is not volume, it is gravity. It is the invisible weight behind your words. It is the assumption that when you speak, others should listen. When you speak, the room should feel it, not through noise, not through arrogance, but through unshakable certainty. You are not trying to be right. You are speaking like someone who cannot be wrong. You are not trying to be heard. You are speaking like someone who does not care if you agree because you know that eventually, inevitably, reality will confirm what you have already determined. That is power. And from this point forward, it is how you speak, or you stay silent. Because mediocre speech is worse than no speech. Uncertain words are worse than silence. If you cannot speak with certainty, do not speak at all. Number V, the fortress mind, emotional sovereignty. Confidence without control is decoration. It is costume jewelry. It is performance art. You can walk tall, you can speak well, you can move with authority, you can master presence, you can command speech. But if someone can still trigger you with a sentence, if a single comment can collapse your composure, if an insult can provoke visible reaction, you are not powerful. You are exposed. This is where most men fail catastrophically. They master the external performance. They learn the posture. They develop the voice. They practice the walk. But their emotions still belong to everyone else. A whisper of disrespect and they explode. A compliment and they soften inappropriately. A moment of silence and they spiral into insecurity. You are not free until you master the invisible war, the one inside your own mind, the one where your emotions, your reactions, your internal state are under siege from external forces trying to control you through psychological manipulation. And that mastery begins by rewiring your identity at the operating system level. Machiavelli understood this in the courts of power, in the palaces where intrigue was currency and manipulation was sport. He did not fear enemies on the battlefield. He feared dependency, emotional dependency, psychological dependency. He did not trust affection because affection can be weaponized. He trusted control, self-control, because once people know what moves you, they know where to press, they know which buttons to push, they know how to manipulate your behavior. And once they know where to press, you are not dangerous anymore. You are manageable. And manageable men are discarded the moment they lose usefulness. So here is the transformation that must occur. You stop being the man who reacts, and you become the man who calculates. Someone insults you. You do not explain yourself. You do not defend. You do not justify. You observe. You extract data. You analyze. What are they trying to get from me? What emotional reaction do they expect? What are they hiding behind this insult? What insecurity of theirs is being projected onto me? Is this a test? Is this fear? Is this envy disguised as criticism? Someone praises you. You do not melt with gratitude. You do not soften inappropriately. You analyze. Why are they complimenting me now? What do they want? What are they positioning for? Is this genuine or strategic? Are they attempting to lower my defenses before making a request? Someone ignores you. You do not panic. You do not chase. You do not question your worth. You become even colder. You recognize that their withdrawal is either a test of your neediness or a natural filtering process. Either way, you do not react. Silence becomes your weapon, not your wound. This is what it means to become psychologically unreachable, not emotionless like a robot, but unshakable like a fortress. You feel everything, the anger, the pride, the hurt, the desire for validation. You feel all of it, but you act on nothing unless it serves your strategic outcome. When someone tests you, you do not lash out. You show no visible discomfort. You do not defend. You do not explain. You simply observe them revealing themselves. Why? Because your mind is not a public space. It is a fortress. And you decide who enters. You decide what has access. You decide what gets to affect your behavior. That is how you stop being manipulated. Most men are so easy to control, it is laughable. Tell them they are not good enough and they will over-explain, seeking to prove their worth. Tell them they are amazing and they will chase you, hungry for more validation. Pull away from them emotionally and they will beg to reconnect. This is not power. This is programming. These are conditioned responses. And until you break the code, until you identify and destroy these automatic reactions, you will always be someone else's tool. So how do you rewire? You kill 3 core dependencies. First, you kill the need to be understood. This is the root virus, the desire to explain yourself, to be seen, to be validated, to have others comprehend your perspective, your intentions, your worth. This need makes you controllable because it forces you to seek external acknowledgement of your internal reality. Burn it. You do not exist to be understood. You exist to move the world around you strategically, surgically, silently. Let them misunderstand. Let them misinterpret. Let them question. Their confusion is not your responsibility. Your mission is. Second, you kill the fear of rejection because the Machiavellian mind does not chase acceptance, it controls access. You do not want to be invited into their world. You want them to wonder what happens when they are no longer allowed near you. You want them to fear losing access to you more than you fear losing access to them. Third, you kill the habit of reacting emotionally. Emotions are real. They are valid. But they are irrelevant unless weaponized. You are angry. Use it as fuel for disciplined action, not explosive reaction. You are insulted. Use it as leverage for strategic positioning. You are doubted. Use it as silence. Move forward without explanation. Let results speak later. This is how powerful men are built. They do not become robotic. They do not suppress their humanity. They become undeniable. Because once no one can move you emotionally, they can only watch you move with precision and fear what you will do next. Let others chase peace and understanding. You chase clarity and control. Because the world does not care how you feel. It only responds to what you project. Certainty, direction, gravity, unshakable self-possession. And when your identity becomes unshakable, when your emotional state becomes independent of external circumstances, you become dangerous. Not because you are violent, not because you are loud, not because you dominate through force, but because you are unreachable. The people around you will try. They will test you. They will praise you to see if you soften. They will ignore you to see if you chase. They will insult you to see if you break. They will tempt you to see if you compromise. But nothing works. You stay the same, cold, calm, calculated, unmoved. And in time they stop trying to manipulate you because they realize something terrifying. You are the one person they cannot move. This is the final transformation, not posture, not speech, not appearance, but identity rebuilt at the foundation level. You are no longer shaped by others. You shape the room. You shape the rules. You shape the outcome. You do not need to be understood. You do not need to be accepted. You do not need anything from anyone, because now you belong to no one, and that is what makes you untouchable. Number 5. Rejection as intelligence. The strategic withdrawal. Rejection feels like a wound to the weak. To the powerful, it is a signal, a gift, a message from the universe saying, you are too available, too obvious, too desperate. Good. Now you know what needs to be destroyed. Understand this fundamental truth. Rejection is not personal. It is positional. People reject what they believe they can survive without. So if they said no to you, if they walked away, if they dismissed you, if they chose someone else, it means they believe they lost nothing of value. That is not an insult. That is intelligence. That is information. That is data you can now weaponize. Now you know where they stand. And more importantly, now you know where you stand, which means you can reposition yourself strategically to strike back later when they are weak and you are untouchable. Not with revenge, with irrelevance. By rising so far above them that they become invisible in your wake. Step 1. Never appear affected. The moment you show pain, they win. It is not even about them. It is about your legend. About how people remember you. About what story gets told. A Machiavellian mind does not panic when the door shuts. It makes the room colder. You were not rejected. They were disqualified from accessing you. Rejection is only real when you acknowledge it, when you react to it, when you allow it to define your next move. So you do not react, you do not chase, you do not explain, you do not beg, you do not shrink, you evolve. Step 2. Withdraw your presence like a weapon. What happens when something you took for granted disappears? You begin to feel its weight, its value. Its absence creates a void that was previously filled unconsciously. That is exactly what you do when rejected. Vanish. No explanations. No emotional farewells. No closure conversations. Just strategic absence. And while they feel the void, while they wonder where you went, while they question whether they made the right decision, you build, you improve, you sharpen, you become more valuable in the dark. Machiavelli said, men should either be treated generously or destroyed. Because they take revenge for slight injuries but cannot do so for severe ones. So you do not hurt them with petty attacks. You make them irrelevant. You make your silence louder than any words you could have spoken. You make them wonder where you went, how far you have gone, and if they ever truly had access to you at all. Step 3. Reframe the narrative. Rejection only has power if it looks like you were chasing something you could not get. So you rewrite the story, not for them, for yourself. For your own psychological framework. You were not rejected. You selected yourself out of a game too small for your ambition. You allowed them to say no because you were observing their behavior, their judgment, their character. You gave them one opportunity to prove they had the discernment to recognize power when it stood before them. They failed. And in that failure, they told you everything you needed to know. Now you vanish and upgrade. Step 4. Convert rejection into control. Here is where you win the long game. Rejection is clarity. Most people live in confusion, not knowing who respects them, who uses them, who fears them, who genuinely values them. But rejection cuts through that fog like a blade through silk. Now you know who is blind. Now you know where your power has no impact yet. So what do? You refine your edge, you sharpen your image, You amplify your value so loudly that the people who once ignored you now have to explain themselves when they speak your name. You build in the shadows until your presence becomes unavoidable, until your success becomes so visible they cannot scroll past it, until your rise becomes so undeniable they cannot pretend it is not happening. And the next time they come back you do not even need to reject them. You have already evolved beyond their reach. That is control. Silent, permanent, elegant. Step 5. Weaponize your comeback. The goal is never revenge. Revenge is emotional. Revenge is reactive. Revenge is the behavior of someone still controlled by the person who rejected them. Machiavellian power is always calculated, always strategic, always cold. So you do not try to get back at anyone. You let time handle that for you. You reappear only when your presence creates discomfort. When your success is so visible they cannot avoid it. When the person who rejected you is now watching you dominate the very space they thought you did not belong in. And when that moment comes, you say nothing. You offer no spite, no sarcasm, no ego, no I told you so. You offer a simple glance. Or better, no glance at all. Because now you are not trying to be accepted by them. You are setting the standard that others will chase. Final word on rejection. It is not defeat. It is the test. The filter, the fire that shows you what needs to be made cold, what needs to be cut, and who needs to be left behind. So remember this principle. You were not rejected. You were redirected toward a version of yourself that does not ask twice, does not flinch at dismissal, and does not wait to be chosen. Now go build in silence. And return as a force they cannot reject even if they want to, because by then, their opinion will be irrelevant. Your trajectory will be inevitable, and their rejection will be nothing more than a footnote in the story of your ascension. 7. The unreachable state. Psychological invincibility. You have been reshaped, not inspired, not motivated, not encouraged, rebuilt, from the operating system level, from the foundation of identity upward. You killed self-doubt, not with affirmations or positive thinking or vision boards, but with action, with repeated proof that you are capable of doing what you said you would do. You did not wait to feel ready. You moved, you acted, and you learned the most important lesson of power, that readiness is not a prerequisite for action. Readiness is a result of action. Power does not belong to the perfect. It belongs to the bold, to those willing to move before they feel prepared, to those willing to decide before they have complete information, to those willing to act despite fear. You took rejection and turned it into fuel. No more chasing approval from people who are not qualified to evaluate you. No more explaining your worth to those who lack the discernment to recognize it. Now you let people feel the cost of losing you. You let them experience your absence. You let them understand what they dismissed. You became scarce, strategic, silent, and they noticed, not because you announced your transformation, but because your energy changed, your availability changed, your tolerance for mediocrity disappeared. You stopped entering rooms to be accepted. Now you own them through presence, posture, and precision. You no longer speak to be heard. You speak as if no one can afford to disagree. Your words carry weight because they are delivered with the calm certainty of someone who has already made up his mind. You are not seeking consensus. You are stating conclusions. You are not proposing ideas. You are declaring decisions. And above all, you rewired your identity. You are no longer predictable. You are no longer easily moved. You have become unreachable, emotionally untouchable. They cannot provoke you into reaction. They cannot tempt you into compromising your standards. They cannot shake you with criticism or soften you with praise because you belong to no one now. You are sovereign, self-possessed, independent of external validation, and that makes you unforgettable. That is what creates a legend, not noise, not fame, not performance. Powerful silence, cold clarity, ruthless consistency. You do not need to announce your transformation. They will feel it in your walk, in your tone, in your absence, in the way you no longer chase, no longer explain, no longer shrink. You have become the man people observe quietly. The one who used to ask permission, now making decisions. The one who used to seek approval, now being sought. The one who used to chase, now being chased. The one who no longer needs validation because he became the standard. So no, this was not just about confidence. This was about dominance. Mental dominance. Emotional dominance. Psychological dominance. This was about becoming someone who does not fit into the world, but forces the world to adjust to his presence. You are not here to fit in. You are here to move the pieces, to bend the room, to haunt their memory even in silence, because legends do not beg, legends do not explain. Legends exist, and the world reshapes around them. Number 8. The final decree, the inevitable transformation. You stand at the threshold now, between who you were and who you are becoming, between the servant and the ruler, between the reactive and the strategic, between the controlled and the controller. Everything you have read, everything you have absorbed, everything that has been deconstructed and reconstructed inside your consciousness, it means nothing if you do not commit, if you do not take these principles and burn them into your behavior through repetition until they become reflex. Knowledge without execution is entertainment. Understanding without application is delusion. You can know every principle of power and still live powerless. You can see the path clearly and still remain exactly where you are. The difference between transformation and fantasy is action. So here is the moment of decision. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when circumstances align. Now this moment, as you finish these words. Will you return to the comfortable patterns of the servant? Will you shrink back into the familiar prison of hesitation, approval-seeking, and emotional reactivity? Will you let this be another piece of content you consumed and forgot? Or will you commit to the execution? To the daily practice of certainty over doubt? To the consistent choice of expansion over shrinking? To the relentless discipline of action over hesitation? Because the ruler is not born from reading words. The ruler is forged through living them, through practicing them, through integrating them so deeply into your identity that they are no longer techniques you try to remember but reflexes you cannot help but express. Your voice will lower naturally, your pace will slow instinctively, your presence will expand automatically, your certainty will radiate effortlessly, not because you are performing, but because you have become. This will not be comfortable. Growth never is. You will have moments where the old identity whispers for you to return, where safety feels more attractive than power, where being liked feels easier than being respected, where explaining yourself feels more comfortable than holding your ground. In those moments, remember, the servant is seductive. He offers comfort, he offers the familiar, he offers the path of least resistance, but he also offers mediocrity, invisibility, a life where you are used by others to build their dreams while your own potential remains dormant. The ruler offers something different, not comfort, but power, not familiarity, but growth, not ease, but mastery. He offers a life where you shape reality according to your vision, where you command respect through presence, where you influence through certainty, where you lead through example. The choice is yours, but understand this. Once you have seen the path, once you have been shown the principles, once you have witnessed the contrast between the servant and the ruler, you cannot unknow it. You can only choose whether to embody it or betray it. Your presence will change the moment you commit. People will notice before you say a word. They will sense the shift in your energy. Some will be drawn to your new gravity. They will respect you without understanding why. They will listen when you speak. They will defer to your judgment. These are your people. Invest in them. Others will be threatened. They will mock your discipline. They will criticize your boundaries. They will try to pull you back into the comfortable mediocrity you are escaping. These people have revealed themselves. Create distance. Not with drama, not with explanation. Simply withdraw your energy and let them fade into a The world does not give you what you deserve. The world gives you what you demand through your presence, your standards, and your refusal to accept less. You have been given the blueprint. You have been shown the transformation. You have been presented with the choice. Now you decide, not with words, with action, with the very next thing you do after reading this, with how you walk out of this room, with how you speak in the next conversation, with how you carry yourself in the next challenge. You are the architect of certainty. You are the strategist of your own dominance. You are the creator of your legend. You are not waiting for permission. You are not hoping for a sign. You are not asking for approval. You are moving forward, unreachable, undeniable, unstoppable. The throne was never occupied by someone else. It was empty, waiting, and you simply forgot you were born to claim it. Remember now,